Ons fokus vanoggend op biotehnologie in die landbousektor. En Chantel Arendse van CropLife SA gesels nou daaroor. So goeiemôre Chantel en hartlik welkom op Grootplaas.
Good morning, Elsie, and thank you for having me.
Chantel, how do biotech crops benefit agricultural production in South Africa?
Yes, Elsie. Well, South Africa has a 20-year track record with the commercialization and planting of biotech crops. And, based on the latest figures from 2019, a total of more than 2.7 million hectares of biotech plants have been planted in South Africa. And the main crops that have been planted are soybean, cotton, and maize. So, if we just look at, in terms of what else is happening globally in terms of biotech adoption, similarly in South Africa, the main, I would say, input traits that have been planted are those for herbicide tolerance, offering protection against herbicides such as glyphosate, and then also insect resistance traits, such as those for BT. And if we look at the utilization of these technologies, they have provided South African farmers with improved weed control, as well as, more efficient management and control of insect pests, such as maize stalk borer or the African cotton bollworm. So definitely with these, improved control measures, I would say that there's definitely been benefits in terms of yield gains, and then also environmental benefits, because biotech crops are also known for reducing the application of chemical sprays, as well as no tillage practices. So those are just some of the ways that biotech crops have benefited South African farmers.
And why would you say is plant biotech stewardship important?
Well, I think before we can, elaborate on the importance, I think it's important just to understand what exactly is stewardship. And, in simple terms, it is essentially putting all those checks and balances in place, throughout the plant biotech's product life cycle. From its, inception through the development of the product, its use and, eventual discontinuation. So if you think about it, it takes lots of time and lots of effort to invest in the making of a plant biotech product. I think on average, it's about 10 years, and it requires an investment of up to $150 million. So considering that investment, it is critical that the different control steps are in place for stewardship. And also, what this ensures is that the product is safe and that it continues to deliver as an effective pest management tool. And that also you want to ensure that, the benefits are maximized for the consumers, the farmers, as well as the environment. And then also very importantly is, to minimize the risk associated with the development of potential resistance. So those are the reasons why plant biotech stewardship is critical and, part and parcel of the adoption of biotech crops.
All right, now what is the impact of resistance and how can it be managed proactively?
Okay, so despite the advantages, that biotech crops bring to simplifying, pest control, it is still, I think, the biggest challenge is for this technology to continue to be sustainable. The biggest challenge is obviously the potential for the evolution of resistance. And just to point out here that resistance is not a new concept, when it comes to pest management, but it is something that is an ongoing concern, and it's also, a concern for all crop protection users, including the developers as well as the growers of biotech crops. But how do we deal with it? Well, essentially, what is important is that we need to put resistance management plans in place. And this is an essential way of ensuring that, any method of eliminating pests, whether it be, using biotech crops or even other pest control applications, that these measures can remain effective long into the future. So as I mentioned, for farmers that are planting biotech crops, to delay the onset of resistance, critical is having the resistance management plans in place. And these plans obviously need to be tailored to the specific growing conditions of the growers, and also, tailored also towards the different pest pressures that they face at the farm level. And some of the most common strategies, I would say, for tackling resistance management for biotech crops include things like, crop rotation, because different pests attack different crops. And so thereby rotating crops, you can delay the buildup of resistance by certain insects and pests. And then a very other important critical one is the planting of a refuge. And this is specific for insect-resistant biotech crops. And this also helps to prevent or delay the onset of resistance development. And then another option that is open to the growers is the use of multiple stacked traits of biotech crops. This is essentially where you use seed that contains multiple insect-resistant traits within one plant, and therefore, it offers different modes of action for targeted pest control. So these are just some of the ways that resistance is being managed for biotech crops by farmers.
What is refugia management, and how can farmers incorporate it into managing resistance?
Okay, so a key component of any resistance management plan is especially for insect-resistant crops, is the cultivation of a crop refuge. And what this is simply an area that is planted with a non-insect resistant variety of the same crop, and it is planted adjacent to the BT biotech field planting. And how it works is that a refuge of non-BT crops, it maintains an increased, population of insects that are susceptible to that BT protein and that have not been exposed to the BT protein. So if in the event that there are any resistant insects that develop, then the susceptible insects, the non-BT susceptible insects, are they available in high enough numbers to mate with the resistant insects, and therefore ensure that any offspring that comes from that would then remain that susceptible, and also, delay the onset of resistance. So I would say that in South Africa, there are two options available for farmers that are planting biotech crops, and specifically insect-resistant crops. The options are to either plant a 5% non-BT refuge area, which cannot be treated with any insecticide, or the other option is to plant a 20% non-BT crop refuge area that could be treated with a registered insecticide, but one that does not contain BT as an active ingredient. And I would say that, despite, refugia being a compulsory, part of insect-resistant management for BT crops, non-compliance by growers is still, a challenge. And obviously there is still lots of room for improvement. And I think, just on that point, one of the ways to improve, compliance for planting of the refuge and for monitoring it is that there needs to be, I think, a joint effort by the entire biotech seed value chain. This includes the technology developers, the seed distributors, the advisors and extension services. And I think, all of this entire value chain needs to step up their efforts and take on the responsibility of educating and training the growers, specifically on the technology itself, how it works, and also how to use it responsibly and make sure that, there is importance attached to adhering to refuge compliance.
And now, where does a biotech fit into integrated pest management?
Okay, so, biotech crops alone, will not provide 100% protection against all the pests that farmers are battling in the field. It is just but one pest management tool, I would say. So in order for biotech crops as a pest management tool to remain effective long into the future, it needs to be utilized and seen as part and parcel of a broader, insect pest management system, at the farm level specifically. And of course, this needs to go hand in hand with good agricultural practices, and also, needs to be complemented by a diverse range of alternative pest control solutions. So yes, biotech crops is not a silver bullet, but definitely, it is part and parcel of agricultural production in South Africa, and therefore, a more holistic, integrated pest management approach is needed.
Chantel, I've read a press release about what seems like a stewardship awareness campaign. So can you please just give us a little bit more background on that?
Okay, sure. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, that there is just not enough being done in terms of stewardship, and always room for improvement. So as part of, CropLife's effort, to raise awareness on stewardship, we have embarked on this stewardship campaign, where we have roped in various speakers, to speak on the subject of stewardship, and specifically, the importance of refugia management, to try and, shine a spotlight on it and make people more aware. And so those are the efforts that we are driving from the CropLife side to try and, improve compliance. But of course, it's not just CropLife, alone that has to drive this stewardship campaign and the messaging around, the importance of refugia. Yes. It is a joint effort, by all of our members, and obviously the seed supply chain.
Something that is very important. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much, Elsa.
Dit was dan Chantel Arendse van CropLife SA.